For anybody that would like to participate in public comment, please fill out one of the forms by the door, and you can submit them up here to my desk. All right. I call this meeting to order of the Champaign County Board Committee of the Whole. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Harper, King,
Here.
Lokshin,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Michaels,
Present.
Pesalacqua,
Here.
Paul,
Here.
Rodriguez, Storr, Straub,
Here.
Summers, Taylor,
Here.
Thorsland,
Here.
Vanich Theranunt,
Here.
Williams, Wolken, Carter,
Here.
Cowart, Esri, Fortato,
Here.
Goss,
Here.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Patterson.
Here. All right. Have a motion for the approval of the agenda. Moved by Straub, seconded by Taylor. Is there any discussion? Ms. King?
I'd like to amend the agenda to modify Part 8, Policy, Personnel, and Appointments, to move 2A to the end of the Policy, Personnel, and Appointments following B through I.
Moved by King, seconded by Thorsland, and we would be, essentially, yeah, it's just say moving A past where I is right now. All right, any discussion? Ms. Michaels?
I just wondered what the reasoning was. I'm sorry.
I believe there's going to be more discussion on A, and so the rest of these are pretty straightforward.
All right, any further comment? All right, all those in favor of the agenda as amended? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Do you want to consider it a friendly, because we would need to vote on the, do you want to consider it a friendly amendment, Jen? You moved the agenda? Yes, I do. And your seconder was Leah? All right, so all those in favor of removing the agenda as amended, say aye.
Are we moving the agenda or moving the change agenda?
So
Are we
there,
voting
it's a
on the
friendly,
change?
it's a friendly amendment, so we don't need to vote separately for the amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Next is Could I have a motion for the approval of the minutes from April 12th, 2022, regular meeting?
So moved. Lockshin.
Second, Carter.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next is public participation. I have Mike Melton.
Good evening. My name is Michael Melton. I'm a board member of Sangamon Valley Water District. My name is Michael Melton. I'm a board member of the Sangamon Valley Water District. And I'm here to say that we really need Mike Larson to be reappointed. His knowledge of the water and sewer that we will be doing. We have a $500,000 grant to go north where the gas line got into the water system to about 40 homes. And he's an employee of the University of Illinois in the water and sewer department. And I don't think that you could find a more qualified person to help us out in those expansions, and he's been a board member for 10 years. So I'd like to support him and hope that you can also to be reappointed to his next term. Are there any questions? Thank you. Yes?
All right, thank you. Next, I have Bud Parkhill.
My name is Bud Parkhill, and I'm a customer out in Sangamon Valley Public Water District and a former board member. And I'm here to ask you and to endorse Mike Larson's reappointment as a trustee of the Sangamon Valley Public Water District. Mike has been an excellent board member for a few years and has led with a steady hand. And I don't know of anyone that out in our district who is more knowledgeable than Mike is with the operation of a water and a sewer facility. The district needs Mike reappointed at this point in time more than ever. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up, I have Matthew B. I'm sorry, I can't make out the last name. Matthew B.
Hello, my name is Matt Broga, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Operations Department of Sangamon Valley Public Water District. We wanted to share with the Committee of the Whole our feelings about our work environment over the last 3 months. In February of this year, Trustee Mike Larson made a post on Facebook regarding an upcoming board meeting. This post caused unnecessary time spent away from regular duties, and we have had to have an emergency staff meeting to discuss this post and how to handle the situation should the public approach us. Then, a month later, we were made aware of a petition that Trustee Larson assisted forming and was being circulated in the district. Ever since these events occurred, we have been faced with unruly customer complaints, questions, and undue stress at work, targeted at us directly. Originally, we were unaware of this petition until customers started hassling us and asking us questions like, are you selling out to American, or is the university buying you? We were also told that water prices had doubled, going up from $40 to $90. We found out later after asking the office that this was untrue. Now that the petition is public, we are still experiencing customer complaints both during our workday and outside of our working hours. This should not carry over to our day-to-day life and work responsibilities. We are asking the Committee of the Whole to think long and hard before voting to reappoint Trustee Mike Larson.
Thank you. Next, I have Mark Sellers.
Okay, my name's Mark Sellers. I've worked at Sangamon Valley Water since 2006. If the committee wants to do what's best for Sangamon Valley Water, they will not recommend Mike Larson to be reappointed to the Board of Trustees at Sangamon Valley Water. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Carrie Gifford.
Hello, everyone. I'm the General Manager at Sangamon Valley. To talk about Mike Larson's reappointment, I'm going to go back a little bit to 2021, May of 2021, when Mr. Parkhill wasn't reappointed. At that time, the board majority had changed to a more community board because we had a 4-3 community board, new board members, and we had 3 of the old standby good old boys from the good old boy system. That budget year, things were improved for employees, livable wages, trying to improve the benefits. This caused a lot of what I call a hostile work environment. Mike Larson was one of the ringleaders. He got real busy calling me to talk about the chairman of the board and how she didn't do things right. In the evening, on my own hours, he was doing that. Mike Larson was inviting my employees to lunch to talk about their career going around me. Mike Larson was frustrated with the outcome, so he put out some social media antics that created a pretty harsh work environment for me and my staff from the customers. Like my employees just said, there was things like American Water's buying us out, the bill's going to $90. Our board members are from Chicago, so we've had to address this through our website, and we're right in the process right now. I don't have it with me, but I'm making a card for my employees to hand the customers with the facts of our water rates, frequently asked questions about why we charge what we charge, because it's not good when you go to the Casey store during your break and you've got someone saying, which big house do you live in? All that money I'm paying you. So it's been very difficult. And Mike Larson's been a leader in these problems. So I'm asking you tonight to please do not put Mike Larson in for another term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Megan Hennessy.
Good evening. My name is Megan Hennessy. I'm the chairman of the board of Sangamon Valley Water District. In trying to decide how I was going to speak tonight, I've had some employees who've shared some stories. I started to reflect on why I took the position that I did on the board of Sangamon Valley. And I think it's probably why a lot of you took the positions that you did on the board. It's to serve the community. So when you start serving the community, you start to ask questions about what your new role entails, what it is that you do, what it is that you're responsible for, and what the priorities should be. And I think what I have learned in this current role is that if the priorities of a majority of the board are not in line with the priorities of what the community needs that entity to do, you have a problem. I think we're struggling with that right now. I think that there are questions that need to be asked. Why, after 5 decades of appointing board members, do we suddenly request a change for that to be elected from the very people who've been appointed for all those decades? what is it that needs to be controlled? What is it that is going on? What's happening with the money? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. And I think you find when you start asking questions and you find resistance to those questions, a very wise person told me that it's usually for one of two reasons. One, the person you're asking doesn't know the answer and they don't like that. Or two, you're asking a question about a truth that someone doesn't want to say. And so as you reappoint tonight, we have had petitions started by board members who've acted duplicitously, starting the petition, not acknowledging that to the full board. There was an attempt to have the petition certified without any knowledge of the board at all by the very people who are supposed to be fiduciaries of that board. When those types of things go on, you should be asking questions about why that is. The more that I find out as chair, the more my eyes are opened. So I think there are questions that need to be asked. I don't think that trustees sitting on a board for decades is necessarily good for a board. I don't think that it helps when the priorities of the board start to shift from what the entity and the community need that board to do for them to something that is more akin to special interests. I think that's what we're struggling with in Mahomet right now. I think that's what we're struggling with at Sangamon Valley right now. And it is impacting the employees. We have had complaints that we are dealing with. It is distracting from the main goal of making sure that people get clean water. This is not something that should be messed with. This is not a power struggle. This is people's access to clean water. This is not political. It should not be politicized. I think we have examples of what happens when you politicize these types of things, and usually the community suffers for it. So I think it's important to understand that when a power struggle is going on for something like a trustee on a water board, that seems weird. And I think it is weird, and the questions need to be asked about why that is. And when the process that we went through previously for employees, I would always, when trustees were being appointed, I would receive a phone call from the clerk's office to ask how things were going. I didn't receive that phone call this time. It leads me to believe that this has become something political, and I think that's dangerous for my community. We need our employees focused and safe to do their jobs, to deliver water, to make sure that people have access to a public utility, and politicizing this does not help. And if we have trustees who have lost their way and they don't understand what the mission is anymore, then perhaps it's time for them to be replaced, and someone who has a desire to align their priorities with the community can fill that position. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my last slip. Is there any other members of the public that would like to speak? All right. Next on the agenda is communications. And I want to start off by taking a moment to recognize the passing of Timothy Johnson, who, as you may know, spent his entire 75 years of life in this community, served on the Urbana City Council. He served in the Illinois House, represented this area for 24 years, and 12 years in the U.S. House. And one thing I guess I'll say about Tim Johnson is, you know, no matter how you feel about his politics, he was somebody who was known to have an insatiable appetite for constituent outreach. I think it's something that's been recognized pretty widely. I think everybody in this room probably knows a handful of people who didn't know Tim Johnson but got a call from him because they were his constituent. And for a member of Congress to invest that much time in calling constituents instead of fundraising is really remarkable. Is there any other communications? Chris?
Thank you, Chair. It's been called to my attention that Sheriff Dustin Harmon is not going to be available at the end of the month for the scheduled study session that was going to be on the jail. I think that we should delay that study session until he returns.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm just realizing now because it's at the end of the agenda and our caucus ran kind of long, I was going to address that, but kind of got skirted over. Sorry about that.
I would like to bring up the case of John Wall, a gentleman from Baltimore, who's serving 25 to life for 1,400 grams of cannabis because of federal laws in a state where it was legal. And this is again meant like bring up the dangers of commingling funds from our state. Cannabis money could potentially put us in real danger, that it is still federally illegal, and banking regulations in the West Coast are getting stricter. And just as a warning to our county that we should be aware.
Thanks. Anybody else? Ms. Straub?
My friend and constituent, Ms. Jenny Putman, contacted me right before the meeting to express that she was disappointed not to be able to attend tonight, but she wanted us to know that she's very proud to serve the well-oiled machine that is the Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Moving on, Justice and Social Services. Leah?
Thank you, Chair. Monthly reports for Probation and Court Services, Animal Control, Emergency Management Agency, and the Public Defender have been uploaded to each department's webpage. Item B, the Rosecrans Reentry Financial Report for March of this year is included in your packet. Information only. I do not have any other business. I do not have a chair's report. And we do not have any items to be placed on the consent agenda. Back to you, Chair.
All right, next on the agenda is policy personnel appointments. Chris?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It actually has something to do with what Chris was talking about with the study session and what's going on with our jail. And I wondered more about what you were thinking. Obviously, with having to close the downtown jail because we're losing so many staff, I think we need a plan. I think we need to support our staff. We haven't been doing that. That $1.5 million would go a long way in showing the county staff, the corrections officers, deputies, and build a plan to retain staff, have a plan to keep staff. So I'd like to hear what your plan is, if we're going to bring Carrie in or somebody to Captain Vogus in to, and what the schedule for that would be.
I guess I would say that I think that the sheriff has come to us a number of times asking for additional funds to address those issues. And we have, as a board, approved sign-on bonuses for his department. We gave the employees of his department a much larger bonus than other members of the county. And we're also, putting forward money to keep inmates out of the county so that they can close the downtown jail. So I think we have taken a number of steps. I don't think we've turned down anything that the sheriff has asked for, so.
And yet the outcome of all that is that we're losing so many staff that we're closing the downtown jail and moving 150 people out of the county. Right now have the highest populace of people in the jail at over 316. So I'm not sure that the things that you just suggested have had the intended impact to keep staff, because our staff are continuing to leave. We need more of a plan. We need to show that we support the corrections officers so that they'll stay rather than leave. I mean, this is not a McDonald's. We can't close at 6 o'clock. It's really kind of sad that we're moving all these people out of the county away from their families and their attorneys. We almost will have as much staff, as many people out of the county as we will in the county. So I don't think it's working, the plan that you have or what you've been doing, and the jail isn't large enough to do it.
So as finance chair,
I'll speak to a few things. First, we as a county have issue retaining our employees across the board. And we, at considerable sum, I think about $200,000, have paid for and are developing a study as to why that is, that the sheriff's folks will be a part of, but we're going to look at more comprehensively in order to address, I think there's several issues that go into employment retention. Salary is one of them. Working conditions are another. Opportunities for promotion and advancement. Opportunities for mentorship, equity. This study is going to be looking at that across the board. And when we get the results of that study, it'll allow us to have a comprehensive plan that we move forward on, working through the labor committee with the various unions that oversee those employees. So we are taking that step. Secondly, after years of contention while we did it, this board has set forward on a path to move on expanding the satellite jail, and there is a timeline and a clock for that. Third, the sheriff is going to come to us in June. He has enough money right now to move everybody out of the county short term, and he is starting that process. Some folks in this room talked to various news agencies about it, and what was exciting to me is that what I heard from both parties who spoke, I think it was on Fox last night, is that there's support for us doing that financially. So the sheriff has started, it's going to take a little bit of time to figure out the exact dollar amounts of what he needs because there's a lot of moving parts. But in June, we will be voting on a resolution to ensure that we have the money that we need to make sure for this year and next year while we're continuing to deal with the facility issues that we have. Finally, not everybody in this room voted for raises, for bonuses for the sheriff employees. You'll see that the dollar amount later on in the finance agenda comes in. We were off by about $9,000, and one of the reasons for that was it's very complicated to figure out the benefit for all of these folks. So when Bill was doing his calculations, we were a little bit off. So I will hope that everybody will vote for that so we can make whole those funds from ARPA money. But we put $750,000 into trying to let our employees know that we care about them. In addition, we did signing bonuses, and the vast majority of that money went to the sheriff's office. So I'm not going to disagree that this is an issue that we need to address, but we're taking steps to address it in ways that have not been taken in this county for 20 years. Full stop.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have policy personnel appointments. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Call your attention to the monthly Human Resources Report. It's on file. And I would entertain an omnibus motion for items 8A, or 8A, 2B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I.
So moved, Straub.
I'll second Loction.
Discussion?
Yeah, I would like to see items D and E pulled off of that omnibus. I have a question directly to that, and I don't want it to affect the rest of the appointments.
I mean, I guess you could speak to it on the omnibus. I mean, you know, if you made the context clear that you're referring to the board of review appointments, that would just save us a additional vote.
All right, well, I'm not going to like it then. My question then is, and I don't see either appointee in the room. I have a question whether either one of those two board members of the Board of Review have completed their required certified Illinois assessing officer training as it's required for that position. I don't believe they have. I could be corrected if it's happened in the last week or two, but that's why I wanted to pull that off of the omnibus, because I'm going to vote no, because until I know whether they've done that, I don't think they should be reappointed until they complete their continuing education.
Chris, I think Mr. Williams has a comment.
Mr. Williams?
The only statutory requirement for the Board of Review is to pass the exam. The CIO is not a requirement unless the county has some rule internally. It's not a requirement for that position.
I believe it is a county rule, but I could be wrong.
Well, the county has a rule to require 2 years of real estate experience. But as far as I know, and as someone who was on the Board of Review, the CIO is not required.
Ms. Michaels?
Can I just make a comment that if we don't pull those off, that could lead for the rest with some no votes that would have yeses? Just my thought.
Well, okay.
Call on Jen.
Say,
Yes, just entertain a friendly motion.
I would entertain a friendly amendment to take off items D and E from the omnibus
I would offer
motion.
that as a friendly amendment to remove items D and E.
I'll accept that as well as the seconder.
okay. All righty. With D and E taken off, is there any further discussion on items 2B, C, F, G, H, and I? If there's no discussion, all in favor of the appointments of Resolution Cody Rose to Fenfield Public Water District, Jennifer Putnam to the Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District, appointing Ann Robin to the Developmental Disabilities Board, Vicki Nyswander to the Developmental Disabilities Board, Molly McClay to the Mental Health Board, and to Kevin Harden to the Tolono Fire Protection District, various terms. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Goody. All righty. What to do about items D and E? We've discussed this. Do we want to, do we defer these until the board meeting or vote on them?
It's not, Chris, it's not a requirement, so according to Darlene, it's not a requirement, so you can put them together.
Okay. Separate.
Wayne's hand is up.
Oh, Wayne?
I just want to move that we accept, I want to move that we accept the resolutions, item D and E, so we can start discussion.
Do we have a second? Jacob Paul, thank you. Discussion of the resolutions appointing Chris Diana, Republican, to the Board of Review, and Susan Frobish to the Democrat to the Board of Review, both terms ending June 1, 2024. Oh, excuse me, May 31st, 2024. Any discussion? Wayne?
I just want to say that these two members of the Board of Review have served admirably under very tough circumstances. They both came in after the appeal time had started, and really to say they got thrown into the deep end is very much an understatement. I say this as someone who has not agreed with several of their decisions, but that's just the nature of my position and theirs. We're not always going to agree. That said, it is my opinion that they have served admirably. I have worked with the board on quite a regular basis since Chris and Susan were appointed, and I would hope that the board will support their appointment for another full term.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of the resolutions signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. This will not go on the consent agenda. All right. We return to item 8A to A, resolution appointing Mike Larson to Sangamon Valley Public Water District, term June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2027. Do we have a motion? Ms. King, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. Discussion on the motion. Oh, wait a minute. I have a letter I've been asked to read. To the Champaign County Committee of the Whole. Hello, my name is Lindsay Wallen. I am the Assistant General Manager and former Secretary for the Sangamon Valley Public Water District in Mahomet. I am unable to attend the meeting this evening, but wanted to share my public comment today to make the Committee of the Whole aware of my feelings regarding the upcoming appointment for the Sangamon Valley Public Water District Board. When I was hired in 2019, the office manager position came with the additional job of being secretary for the Board of Trustees. Initially, I was very excited. As the months went on, I began to realize that some of the board members were not as employee or customer focused as I was originally led to believe. 3 board members had been serving on this board for over 30 years, one since the beginning of the district in 1966. And there was definitely no diversity included on this board with the exception of 1 female board member. The lack of employee focus was made more apparent during my first budget meeting, where I took minutes of a closed session for the discussion of compensation for all employees. During this session, it was apparent to me that the tenured board members did not believe in fairly compensating their employees. As time went on, the board changed. The chairman position transitioned from Mr. Bud Parkhill to Mrs. Megan Hennessy. Then, on May of 2021, the longest-serving board member was not reappointed. In addition, several other appointments took place that made the board more equal in its male-to-female ratio, but still not entirely diverse. Over the course of the last year, the board began to make some changes in favor of the employees in order to attract and retain quality employees. I believe the reason these changes began taking place is a direct reflection of the shift in leadership and the diversity of the board. In fact, we have had no turnover in staff since February of 2021. Although positive changes were starting to happen, my last 5 or 6 months as secretary have not been so pleasant. Prior to the budget meeting held on November 2021, Mike Larson emailed me and asked me to meet with me outside of the district to discuss career development, in quotations. Mr. Larson had not asked this of me during the previous year's budget time period. In fact, Mr. Larson had not spoken to me individually at all outside of the board meeting up until this point. I respectfully declined his invitation as I felt this was a direct and blatant conflict. The budget passed with a vote of 4-3, and the board voted down Mike Larson's request to have a closed session to discuss employee compensation, this time for the first time in over 30 years, to my knowledge. A few weeks after this occurred, Trustee Robert Buchanan was extremely unprofessional and spoke to me about another employee regarding my work ethic and pay. He also did this again 2 weeks ago, but this time spoke to a former employee about me and Carrie Gifford, my general manager. Before the February 2022 board meeting, Mr. Larson also posted on the Muhammad Seymour Talk Face group 2 days before the board meeting. In his post, Mr. Larson lied about what certain agenda items were about. This post created unnecessary and undue stress for both customers who read the post and our employees who all saw the post. The office had to field phone calls from customers who didn't understand the difference between Mr. Larson's post and what was actually on the agenda. This took away time and energy that could have been spent in a more productive way. It also caused customers of the public to become rude towards our maintenance staff working in the field. Lastly, Trustee Buchanan attempted to have me, as the secretary, illegally sign and certify a petition without the whole board's knowledge. I declined to do this. Trustees Buchanan, Larson, and Milton all came together with the assistance of former trustee Parkhill and developed and circulated a petition to have board members elected instead of appointed. It seems to me that for over 30 years, appointing board members was fine up until Mr. Parkhill was not reappointed, and then it needed to change. The customer feedback our office received about this petition caused me to believe that many signatures were obtained under false pretenses. The statements that customers provided were customers like, your water bill will increase from $40 to $90. You could have a board members from Chicago. American Water is buying the district, and the University of Illinois is buying the district. Behavior of these specific board members is appalling and unprofessional, to say the least. Due to the unprofessional behavior of these board members and the lack of knowledge about the petition process, I resigned as secretary of the board on April 12th. There seems to me to be a hidden agenda behind the desire of these board members to gain control of the board that they have had for over 30 years. They are hurting the employees and other trustees, and in turn, hurting the customers of the water district. They are prohibiting us from focusing on our mission to provide clean, quality water to the residents of Sangamon Valley Public Water District. The trustees of this board have the obligation and responsibility to ensure this mission is met. And if you decide to appoint Mr. Larson, I feel like this mission will fail. Thank you for your time today. Sincerely, Lindsay Wallen, May the 10th, 2022. Is there discussion to the motion? Mr. Pascalaqua.
Chris, I appreciate you sharing the article or the blog or whatever it may be today, but I'm a little reserved in that article in that in the first paragraph it incorrectly quoted Mr. Goss as stating that Mr. Parkhill had a conflict of interest, which he did not say that. We also have testimony from an individual this evening saying that she felt that she was working in the best interest of the community, but yet she's resistant to letting the community vote for the trustees. So it's really hard for me to see, based on the limited amount of information that we have tonight, who the bad apple is here. I know that the appointee is extremely qualified and on paper and via testimony from public participation, but I am really apprehensive about making a decision based on some people who maybe just don't see things this person's way. And I would say that it looks to me like Sangamon Valley is creating their board in the very image of this board. I'm not proud of that, but we exude
dysfunction at this board, and that needs to change. Maybe theirs does too. But I would hate to discount somebody who's incredibly qualified for this type of work based on somebody's opinion.
Mr. Jen Lockshin?
It appears to be several people who have spoken to issues with Mr. Larson, so I would say maybe that we shouldn't be voting on him at all if we're not certain of his character based on the multiple reports that we've heard from both sides this evening.
I think I'm the only person in this room that actually drinks this water. And, you know, not liking someone, I think, would put us all in a different room if it really was. And then whatever conflicts that happen in a workplace, my biggest focus is on that my kids and my neighbors have the best drinking water they have. I believe Ms. Hennessy was correct to saying that, you know, that we should focus on serving the community, and she's right. And then I think the best person to help serve the community in this instance, regardless of what they are, you know, with each other or how so, if there's something that they could add to improve the water, is necessary. Like Monty is a Democrat, and I gave him full endorsement because he did the sewers of Decatur for his whole career. To discredit someone's skill set because you don't like them isn't how we should run our government or our boards. It's unfortunate that there is dissident in this with them. And what was your raise? Just curious. If this is all over, you getting paid. It's like 42,000. Would you like to come sit down? Did you bring any evidence? Did they bring any evidence?
Are you attacking the public?
No, I'm asking.
Participate?
I want to know if this is what the issue is.
Jacob, you know, we can do this under discussion, but we're not interrogating.
I just want to figure out if everyone in the room is here, that all the issues are. Why don't we use all the people in the room and discuss why we're turning away someone who has 22 years experience doing the water for the whole of the U of I. I want to have the same drinking water that you guys have at work. I feel like I deserve that. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Ms. King.
I guess this is the dysfunction Mr. Pasalacqua was lecturing us about.
Mr. McGuire.
Thank you. I'm a little confused if we're looking for the best people for these jobs, unless there's some political issue. I've worked with Mike Larson for over 15 years at the University of Illinois at Facilities and Services. He's currently the Director of Utilities and Production for the campus and Energy Generation and Purchasing. At work, his integrity is never questioned. The work that he does is never questioned. I'm not sure whose ideas or what impressions people have here of him, but to not have somebody like this on the board for Muhammad would show our dysfunction that we aren't trying to find the best people for these boards, and questions who he is, which is very unfortunate that this has gone on all night. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Thorsland.
Thank you, Chris. I might be the only rep here that, while I didn't drink the Sangamon Valley Water Authority water, I was close to a lot of people that did. I was a rural resident of District 1. As the past board president of the Muhammad Area Youth Club, I had some dealings with Mr. Parkhill. I read the article. Some of the things don't surprise me in the article. The thing that I think that we have to remember here is that we have more than one person who said that there's been some issues with Mr. Larson and how he's conducted his public face as a board member of the SVW. I hate to see employees who are responsible for keeping this water drinkable and clean and safe being harassed by the customers that they serve. And it sounds like this may have been generated from some commentary that came from this particular board member. I don't discount his experience in doing what he does with water. And I don't discount the right for the people in that area to choose who they have serving them on this board, but I want to make it clear that right now the county has oversight over this board. I don't think we should give up having oversight over this board as long as this board has voted to spend $500,000 through SVW to run this new line up north. I think that we should have a say in how that is managed. I think that there are other people that are equally competent in doing all this. I won't support this particular board member because what I hear on the record doesn't make me feel good about it. And I have circulated through Muhammad politics for quite some time, and I commend the people who came out to speak tonight, and I hope that this discourse that we worry about isn't thrown back at them later on, either at work or in their private lives back in Muhammad. And I appreciate them coming out tonight. I appreciate everyone who's come out tonight. Thank you.
Is it okay if we get down here first? Right, thank you. Okay, Ms. Lee Taylor.
Thank you, Dr. Storr. As far as my concerns go, I'm seeing during public commentary and then including the letter that Chris read out, we have more than twice as many people who are speaking out against this appointment. Members of that community, people who've worked with him, people who've worked underneath him. In my opinion, in my mind, there's just way too many questions from that article, from accusations being made, for me to sit easy and just say, go ahead, appoint this person. I'm going to be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. First, I just want to, we're talking about our interest, I suppose, and why we are reviewing this, the purpose in general. Believe in many respects we're here to look out for the employees, right? I think that every employee has a right to live in a drama-free environment, a retribution-free environment, and a disinformation-free environment. That seems to me to be a no-brainer. Next, I wanted to comment, Mr. Pasalacqua mentioned that they want to refashion this, something that looks like this board. I might agree with that. I mean, half of us here are, have replaced somebody who ran this board like a fiefdom. So that parallel might be a good one. Lastly, I wanted to have the opportunity to read a portion of that letter again, and so I might ask a question about it. Is that all right, Chris? I'd like to read a portion of the letter. Thank you. I think the board would be better served by having a female read this. Prior to the budget meeting held in November 2021, Mike Larson emailed me and asked me to meet outside of the district to discuss career development. That was placed in parentheses. Emphasis mine. Mr. Larson had not asked of this of me in the previous year's budget time period. In fact, Mr. Larson had not spoken to me individually at all outside of a board meeting up until this point. I respectfully declined this invitation as I felt this was a direct and blatant conflict. So the question, I know that we have the benefit of hearing from folks here. So my question is, what is career development? And why do you believe that Ms. Wallen might have put that in parentheses? Sure.
There's absolutely no way to know without them people being here. That's how law works, is that we have to have evidence.
The law?
What?
Is this a courtroom?
Are we making laws? No? Ordinances? Things that people have to follow?
It's quite two different branches of government is what I mean to point out, but please continue.
No, my only thought is that it could have been Mr. Larson seeing whether or not if he wanted to take another year on the board, if there was conflict. They're saying that there's absolutely no way to know. Only thing that we know is that he has 22 years experience bringing one of the largest public institutions in the country clean potable water, and I would like that same privilege.
Should I be acknowledged again, or are we okay to move forward? Okay, I'm just going to talk then. Thank you, Wayne. So I asked for the benefit of reading this, again, a woman reading this, because I read this a very particular way with career development in parentheses. I know exactly what that means. I have experienced that sort of conversation. And again, I agree. The very base, it is too important a service to place to things like politics and to leave employees to just kind of to leave employees to deal with, to navigate a hostile work environment. That to me is really concerning. And again, I'm reading this as a female. And you might have a different opinion on that, but again, I think it is worthy of noting. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I had the opportunity to talk with Ms. Lindsay Wallen, and I appreciate your reading that particular segment because I got the same sort of impression when I was talking with her. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Goss.
Thank you. It's impressive that Ms. Hennessy has rallied her troops this evening to bring her friends to this board. It seems like that's why this board has become contentious, because this board has chosen to pay, as in the words of Mr. Dr. Young, politricks with this board for the last few appointments. You know, it's ironic that Ms. Hennessy talks about people that are long-serving board members when you couldn't get people to apply to this board, which is why they're long-serving. And you're going to have trouble getting people to apply to these boards when you slander their character, which is what you've done here to Mike Larson, is slander his character on hearsay. I mean, give me a break. You know, this reeks of politics, specifically with Ms. Hennessy. Let me give you a little example of that. She also sits on the Muhammad Seymour School Board. She's brought her brand of toxic politics to the school board. She also served with Mike Larson's wife. I believe there is a personal conflict between those two. It's political. The last two appointments that have been contentious on this board are one of her very best friends, Dr. Colleen Schultz, who doesn't even live in the district. She was appointed last November. I complained about it then. She lives south of I-74. She's never going to be appointed or never going to be served by Sangamon Valley Water. Monty Cherry, who was also appointed in Bud Parkhill's position. He lives north of town. The only way he's going to be served by this board or by this water district is if they ever get the money to run up to that area to fix the people's gas leak. Monty lives far enough away that he's not going to be served. I don't know, so I'm not even going to comment on whether his water's tainted or not. I don't believe so, but it seems to change every time I get a constituent call up there that somebody else has found gas in the water. You know, this comes down to the fact this board has decided to disagree with everybody on the board, and you've chosen to make decisions out of Urbana to take care of the people in Muhammad. That's what they don't like about the Champaign County Board. I agree with you, Emily. I totally agree with you. You talk about fiefdoms, that's what Ms. Hennessy has actually created in Muhammad, is her own little fiefdom. She gets to call the meetings. They don't have a board policy. They don't have bylaws. So if you wanted to call a special meeting of the board there, the only way is to get the board chair herself to call the meeting. Ms. King, we see that you have a question. You can wait till I'm done. And you know, we see that you want to make this political. I know Ms. Hennessy wants to make it political because that's why she's gotten all these people appointed to the board. I support the people out there making their own choice because they can't trust this board
to appoint the qualified people out there without slandering the people that have either been on the board or the people that are running for the board. So I'm going to encourage Mike Larson. I mean, I know we're not going to appoint him. I'm going to encourage him that he shouldn't even try, because you've slandered him, slandered his career, slandered his family, and all for hearsay from a political blog that is, oh, by the way, another friend of Ms. Hennessy. If you don't believe it, just go see how she fell all over herself to support Ms. Hennessy in the school board race. You've let this be political. Now you get to choose and live with it. You caused the uproar in the board.
Ms. King.
Is it a Champaign County Board meeting without a Republican throwing a temper tantrum and yelling at a woman who's not even talking over him? But anyway, I think the main point here is that the majority of the people that work for this water district came here tonight to tell us that they feel they are being threatened at work by someone who's supposed to be serving on the board. That right there should make us all stop and go, is there a problem? And if there is, we should not be reappointing this person. That's it.
Mr. McGuire.
Thank you. The issue probably I would be concerned about tonight is that, are they concerned about their job because of the current leadership, if they didn't show up and they're here, or are they concerned about what will happen to their job later if the board changes? But we're here to serve the public. My understanding, there's 250 signatures on that petition of 300 and how many people. So we're interfering with the public's services and the people that want this service and the changes. Thank you.
Mr. Thorsland.
Well, for one, Jim, the petition isn't related to Mr. Larson. It's related to electing the people. So we're talking about the appointment of Mr. Larson right now, and not whether or not that petition is good or not, or whether the cause for it is good or not. The other thing that I read, and I can only say it's hearsay, but I've seen it, is that there's a lot of discussion in this article about various things that have to do with the finances of SVW, sweetheart deals for labor and material that benefit particular people that are customers of it and maybe aren't offered to all the people who are customers of it. And again, we have sent $500,000 to SVW, and I want to make sure that that money doesn't get used for anything but helping the people that are north of town that are affected by the gas leak. And if they run that interceptor up, Monty Cherry's house is not that far from Route 47 because he was a former neighbor of mine. So all they have to do is jump the river, and it's not the first time the water has gone across the river. So potentially Mr. Cherry would be a customer of it. It would have served my farm well to be a customer of SVW. And I'm merely another half mile down that road. So I want to make sure that we have a board that is going to use the money that we send as a county to them to help the people in Mahomet, that it goes to help those people in Mahomet and only those people that we meant that money to help. Thank you.
Ms. Michaels.
Thank you, sir. I just have a question. With the appointments, it's very difficult a lot of times to get people to apply. So if this is not passed, then that leaves an opening for quite a while, at least a couple months or so, or until there are other applicants. The other question is too is, a board should have a makeup of a lot of different people with a lot of different skills and abilities. One person does not say everything for a board in general. So I'm not sure why this one person would be the be-all to end-all being on that board.
Thank you, Ms. Michaels. Ms. Lakshan?
I definitely, from his resume, don't doubt that he's very qualified to do the work that he's applying to do. I just can't vote yes on him tonight after all of the testimony that I've heard from employees of the district who are feeling threatened and are not comfortable with him.
Mr. Goss?
Yeah, one last thing I forgot to bring up. It's not in my notes here that just to make it easier on herself, you know, Miss Hennessy tried to change the board size from 7 to 5. That way she could eliminate Mike Larson without even having to bring it to the county board. So that's, you know, that's what this has come down to. It's become complete politics. And it's not serving the people, that's for dang sure.
Is any of the employees or the board members that are here, are we able to ask them questions?
I'd
I don't
like
think
to
that's
call a question.
Actually, I am, I understand that there is someone who would like to address the board that has an interest in this and didn't speak during public participation. If I don't hear any objection, I'd like to ask that person to
I call the question.
You know, sorry, I don't want to step on your toes. Mr. Storr, you said that it was, she missed public participation. Why are we doing this again? Point of order. Point of order.
Chris, we can't.
Okay, I'm sorry. The chair's kind of ruled that
Well,
this is
at a bare minimum, we would need to vote to suspend the rules.
okay. Yes, yeah.
I move to suspend the rules and allow this woman to speak, since she did submit a letter and it wasn't read.
Second, Rodriguez.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Jenny Lakshan and Ms. Rodriguez seconded to suspend the rules to allow additional testimony.
When will my
Discussion on
motion
the
to call a
motion.
question be heard?
I'm sorry, I guess I didn't hear that. We're discussing a motion to suspend the rules to hear additional testimony from somebody had said that they submitted a letter that had not been
debatable.
Is
Yeah,
there
but he's the chair,
any
and
discussion
after-
of that motion?
After this motion gets passed, you can just do it again because you can interrupt if you're, but you are going to need a second and 2/3 of the vote, which is 15 votes or 12 votes. So
Thank you. If there's no further discussion on the suspension of the rules to hear additional testimony, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Roll call.
Okay. Ms. Megan, are you ready for a roll call?
King,
Wait a minute. Do we need a second for a roll call? I don't think you need to. Nope.
Yes.
Lakshan,
Yes.
McGuire, Michaels, Passalacqua, Paul,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Straub,
Sure.
Summers, Taylor,
Yes.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Vanich Theronot,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Cowart, Furtado,
Yeah.
Goss,
No.
Patterson.
yes.
What do you have for a count?
Fourteen to 4.
Appears that the motion passes. Would you please proceed with it, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, there's a button on the microphone base. Press that.
Here we go. Is that better?
Press it once and leave it. Press one time. There you, oh, it turned right off. I don't know what happened. There you go. Don't touch it again. Okay. We're good.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. I appreciate the fact that, you have a long agenda, so I'll try and keep this as short as I can. But I am actually a customer of the district, and so this impacts me and my family directly, so I appreciate the chance to talk. I'm a community member of Mahomet and have been a customer of the Sangamon Valley Public Water District for the 32 years my family has lived here. I am soon to be retired and am wanting to give back to my community, looking for various roles where I could put my work and career experience with boards and volunteer organizations in my community to good use. I have been following the SVPWD meetings and read minutes of past meetings and have concerns about various conflicts and disagreements that are happening on the board. Throughout my years living in Mahomet, I can only reiterate what I have found to be not only true, but very consequential in terms of decisions that are made for the village of Mahomet. In today's Mahomet Daily, Mr. Monty Cherry commented, and I quote, "This is Mahomet, and usually there's a special interest behind the government, whatever comes out of it. If it does go through that people are elected, most likely these people would be there to serve special interests. But by having people appointed by the county board, again, you don't have that problem. You have board members, all of you, bringing different things to the table. But as I've seen on numerous elected boards in Mahomet, there's no question that there is a special interest behind those options, elections versus appointment. And they work very hard to make sure they keep control of the board. Mr. Bud Parkhill, hi Bud, I've never met you, but it's nice to meet you. Mr. Bud Parkhill owns a great deal of property in and around Mahomet, and it is admirable that he and his family have been successful in their investments. But it is not admirable if he is using his influence to utilize water district resources to avoid spending his own money for repairs and improvements. Like the developers and real estate businesses who stand to gain the most from new development, I believe it is no accident that he and his circle on the board have shown tremendous interest in keeping control of the water district. Why would that be if not for losing something that is very important to his own business interest? I also believe that Mr. Larson, I've also never met Mr. Larson, so it's nice to put a face with a name. Mr. Larson did a disservice to the customers of Sangamon Valley Public Water District when he posted misleading comments on a private Facebook group called Mahomet Seymour Talk that stated there would be an automatic increase every year if something isn't done to change leadership. I read minutes from those related board meetings myself, firsthand, and that statement is simply not true. I believe Mr. Larson behaved unethically and should not be reappointed to his position. I am only one person. I only have one voice. But the older I get, the more compelled I feel to speak to the truth. And I'm less afraid to do that too. I want Mahomet to be a community that embraces best practices and looks to serve the needs of the community in ethical and certainly legal processes. I am not saying with certainty that anyone has violated laws or their fiduciary responsibility with conflicts of interest, but I am much less certain about it today than I was a few years ago. Thank you for taking time for a closer look at this process. I am disclosing that I submitted my name, when you talked about nobody's applying, I submitted my name as a candidate for trustee and would be pleased and proud to serve. However, that's not as important to me. My greatest concern is that you take your responsibility for this decision very seriously and very deliberately for the betterment of service to the Sangamon Valley Public Water District, its board, its staff, and most importantly, its customers. One more thing I want to say is these staff people have been extremely brave to come and talk to you about issues that will eventually probably impact their job security. So I hope that we don't get an opportunity in Mahomet to take these issues past our little village and have someone else look at them and assess whether or not these things are ethical or whether they're questionable. So please, please, I beg you to take this issue seriously and look at the whole picture. Thank you very much for your time, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you have them.
We don't have questions. Thank you for stopping in time. Okay. Okay. at the risk of everybody's ire, is there any further discussion of the motion? No, I hadn't heard that, and I'm sorry about that, but I do have a statement I'd like to read, if that would be okay. Mr. Goss, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't realize that we could suspend the rules so we could have a campaign speech for somebody that's applied for the job. Totally out of order, totally ridiculous. I don't know how she expected to get that read, but if you wanted it read in public participation, it should have been at 6:30. Should have been here. It's ridiculous to suspend the rules so we could have a campaign speech by somebody who's applied. Ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Goss. No, I am going to read something, dadgummit. I have been working on this, studying it, listening to people, doing what research that I can since last summer, and I am just sick to death of this. Spent considerable time discussing these issues, controversies, and disputes, and I do not claim to be wholly informed nor thoroughly knowledgeable about all of this, but based on the range of discussions and what I've been able to gather, the Sangamon Valley Public Water District is crucial to providing an important service to the rural community, and most especially to extend the water main to those residences and people, including former member of this board, affected by the leak from the People's Gas well in the Man-Love gas field. The allegations of bad behavior, relaxed payment arrangements, favoritism, come from many sources. People who would be in a position to know such things. The district recently updated their water plant to a state-of-the-art treatment facility to ensure safe water to the residents and businesses in a growing community. The operational software and processes are impressive in their complexity and sophistication, and I would encourage people to contact the Water District to go take a look at that. In brief, the facility is a modern wonder of chemistry and electrical switching that requires knowledgeable engineers, technicians, plumbers to operate this around the clock. A considerable part of the current board controversy seems to be a disagreement about the oversight of management, staff, operations, and I would say expenses as the district transitions from an entity that provides rural wastewater and water and wastewater services for a mobile home park and a small residential subdivision to one that requires a more educated, trained workforce with specialty certifications, continuing education, updating of expertise for water and wastewater treatment to protect the health and safety of more than 3,000 subscribers. The operation of such a sophisticated technical facilities requires more than the rudimentary knowledge of these electrical, plumbing, and computers. The staff employed for this complex work rightly deserve the respect, compensation, and support that this technical work demands. However, it appears, from what I'm hearing, long-serving members of the Board of Trustees, including the nominee under consideration, are apparently wanting to defer operating costs because of a recent abrupt increase in following a hiatus of rate adjustments, and they're not recognizing the district staff as true professionals deserving commensurate compensation. There appears to be a division regarding the priority for succession planning for the small staff of only 7, which provide 24-hour a day, 365-day a year services for the district. This is more than a mere disagreement on bylaws, bad behavior, and even personal insults. It is about recognizing the increasing requirements for a professional water and wastewater management staff in an increasingly sophisticated world to ensure confidence and safety of potable water and properly treated wastewater services. I've worked for more than 40 years in water and wastewater treatment. I recognize the need to foster educated, certified, licensed professional technicians at all levels of engineering to provide these protections, and especially ensure the safety of the aquifer that provides for all of East Central Illinois. I will not be supporting this nomination based on what I've learned over these past 9 months. I'm sorry about that, but it's in the best interest of the water district, the public water district, and for all of the people that work there and are served by it. Is there any further discussion, or have I put everyone to sleep? There being none, you look like you're getting ready to say something.
I'd like to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Very well. Ms. Megan, Ms. Robinson, can you please?
King,
No.
Lakshin,
No.
McGuire,
Yes.
Michaels, Pasalakwa, Paul,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
No.
Storr,
No.
Straub,
No.
Taylor,
No.
Thorsland,
No.
Vanich Theranot,
No.
Williams,
No.
I can't hear you.
No. No.
Wolken, Carter,
No.
Coert, Furtado,
No.
Goss,
Yes.
Patterson.
No.
Appears that the motion does not succeed. We'll go on to the next item. Item J, there's currently vacant appointments, including for the county court service officers and for correctional officers. Sadly, those really need those. There are applications for open appointments and drainage districts, cemeteries, and the like. County clerk's monthly report is on file. I have no other business. I have no chair's report, and the items to be placed on the consent agenda are items A, 2, B, C, E, or excuse me, F, G, H, I, not D and E. Chair Patterson, is with some relief, I yield back to your.
All right. And I promise you this isn't a metaphor. Is there a way we can turn the temperature down? It seems like a lot of people are fanning.
It's getting hot in here, and I apologize for that. The air handling units on the roof are being repaired this week and will be out the rest of this week. So it'll just get hot. We can open doors. That's all I can do. Sorry.
Well, I tried. Next is finance.
All right. Budget transfer BUA 2022-4263, Fund 2840, ARPA Department 075, General County, amount $9,043. Reason, final cost for ARPA premium pay came in slightly higher than anticipated. A budget transfer is requested from non-personnel to personnel appropriation within the ARPA fund to cover the additional cost. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Straub.
All right, Straub and Patterson. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, budget amendment BUA 2022-4269, Fund 2085, County Motor Fuel Tax, Department 060 Highway, increased appropriation $250,000, increased revenue 0. Reason, budget amendment to re-encumber funds appropriated in fiscal year 2021 for bridge projects on County Road 1. Do I have a motion? Mr. Patterson? Sorry, I saw Ms. Michaels a second. I'll try to look at you. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Budget amendment BUA 2022-4349, Fund 2613, Courts Automation Fund, Department 030, Circuit Clerk, increased appropriations $28,622.78, increased revenue $28,622.78. Reason, appropriation required to increase the spending authority to expend grant money awarded from the Illinois Supreme Court. All right, Ms. Taylor is first, Mr. Patterson second. Discussion. The clerk is here. The clerk is here. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, moving on. Treasurer, resolution authorizing the county executive to assign mobile home tax sale certificate of purchase permanent parcel 04-006-0129. Do I have a motion? Mr. Patterson?
Ooh, I'll second.
Ms. Luxon, second. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution authorizing the cancellation of the appropriate certificate of purchase on a mobile home permanent parcel 20-032-0045. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. King? Ms. Stein? Mr. Patterson, second. Beth will be, sorry. Whatever. Sorry about that, folks. All the discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Sorry, my glasses are getting steamed up because it's so fucking hot in here. All right. Next up, Auditor's Report. Mr.
Good.
Gus?
I see the deputy treasurers here.
Sure.
Would you rather wait till other business, or do you want to do it during the treasurer? I've got questions for him.
Bring it up.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Williams, did we not have a conversation last week about the Mahomet TIF district information?
Sure. What's your question?
Haven't received that as of their board meeting this evening.
Well, obviously, over the last couple of weeks here, we've been extremely busy. So in all honesty, that hasn't been a priority here over the last week, as we discussed too. We did receive the information that we're working on from DevNet. They're supposed to give us the access to that, as I told you when we spoke. But did you get your tax bill?
Yeah, the second question.
Awesome. Okay.
Tax bills are dated June 1st. Don't know a single person that got it before the 9th of May, therefore not giving them 30 days to do it.
Sure.
Let's see, McLean County sent their taxes out, received them on the 30th of April. Vermilion County received those on the 30th of April.
Sure. What's your question in regards to that?
I want to know why those bills didn't get mailed on time to give us 30 days notice.
Sure.
And B, why we took out of the tax bill the information on how to contact the offices for exemptions, how to do that, and we went ahead and threw the clerk's vote by mail application in there instead of the tax information. Who made that decision?
Yeah, as far as that decision is concerned, that's going to be one you'll want to speak with, CJ in regards to, because that was something that she and the clerk did discuss. As far as the other piece of it, that is a hot mic. As far as the other piece of it in regards to why, had you read the post that was on our Facebook page, it clearly stated there was a supply chain shortage. That had nothing to do with us. We did everything in our power. I'm sorry? Okay. We did everything in our power to ensure that we were on time in everything that we could control. As you know, you control what you can control. Everything else has to fall into place. In regards to that, that's what took place. There's a supply chain shortage. There's nothing you can do about that.
Do we print those and mail those on site here?
No, we do not.
Okay, those are printed and mailed out of Decatur, correct?
No, Iowa, actually.
Out of Iowa.
And that's
Okay.
another thing. As I'm actually going to the conference tomorrow, the IACO conference, that's a part of the conversation that I'm planning on having, that I have had, CJ and I both have had, to try to look at another option so that we don't have this issue moving forward.
Yeah, well, they must be able to print them in their own offices in Vermillion County and McLean County.
Well,
'cause
luckily
those
for
came out
us,
on
we have
time.
more people that have been happy than not. So there you go. Anything else? No? Good luck, Mr. Goss. Thank you, guys.
All right, moving on. Auditor monthly report. The auditor was here, still is here, back there. And information about a 457B retirement plan consultant, information only. Ms. Michaels.
Just real quick, as I perused that note from the auditor, I kind of thought that actually belonged to the labor management group, where they can look over that. All labor parties are represented, and they certainly look over the health care and things of that nature. I thought that would be a perfect item for that committee to work on.
Mr. Williams. Well, I mean, yeah, go for it.
I just thought that I would make a suggestion that recommendation or the request or whatever go to a specific committee that we already have in place that deals with those type of things for our employees and has representation from all the different groups that would possibly participate in this. So send it to that committee, let them look at it, and then bring it back to us for an idea.
I will say, I believe we're in a weird position where neither the chair of that committee nor the vice chair is here today for various reasons, but I doubt that they would be against it. I'm sure they'd be for it. I'm on it too, but we're not the chairs, but I'm sure that they'd be amenable to that. Wayne?
This is for George. Has this decision been made, or was this just to let us know, or are you asking us to?
Well, as far as entertaining responses to the RFQ that's been posted to the website, there's no money at stake yet. If we went to an RFP about having a different plan provider, then I think that we would invite the Labor Health Insurance Committee, but we'd have to change their scope to add retirement benefits or deferred comp.
And then, so is this telling us that you want to change the administrator, or this is just to have a consultant on top of the administrator?
Correct.
That we have. Where did the 0.5% portfolio return increase come from?
That's my best guess, based on the fact that the load for the employees is about 1.1%, and that when in the private sector you get fiduciaries, you have bargaining power, and it gets reduced to something like 0.5, and then the fiduciary gets about 1/10%. So there's a net gain.
Do you expect that there'll be different investment alternatives for employees because we're hiring this consultant, or what's the what's the goal?
The fiduciary would make sure that the plan administrator gives you all the options that you've already had, at least in basically you can synthesize the same portfolio. So you would still have the same, like target retirement date 2030, 2035. You could be all stocks, you could be low cap bonds and so forth. But they would make sure that the menu included low cost options. And even that's predicated on if the incumbent, drives such a hard bargain that we wind up shopping it. And if we didn't shop it, obviously, all the funds that were available would stay put.
Is the plan administrator changing that? Is that on the table, or is the consultant gonna?
It's not on the table by any means. Just like our benefits broker will go to market to make sure that our health insurer is reasonable in their premium increases, it doesn't mean that we change Blue Cross Blue Shield. But Blue Cross Blue Shield is quite aware of the fact that we're getting competitive bids from Health Alliance and other insurers. So the idea is that we're doing the same thing. We're trying to benefit county employees with competition from the plan administrator. It's just like you don't want your auto insurance to be the same guy for 20 or 30 years because your premium increases are higher. They take you're captured.
So this cost is 0.1 to 0.15% that the consultant would charge. That's on top of what the plan administrator charges.
I think it's less than the amount that they would be able to get the Nationwide to reduce their load.
Oh, so that's the goal, to get Nationwide to reduce their load.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Michaels has
Partly.
a question, so I'm going to let her take a turn.
Real quick, although I can appreciate the suggestion from the Auditor's Department, I seriously believe this belongs to administration and the people that HR type
Oh, you know what?
information for that versus the auditor being the lead on this.
I'm not. No problem. No, actually, the RFQ is to be sent to Darlene. I haven't opened anything.
I'm concerned that we're gonna, and again, I understand that there's no cost to the county here, but there is a cost to the employees who participate in the 457 plan. And yes, we're talking about 0.1%, but the goal of deferred compensation is to have your money grow over the course of decades, as opposed to years. And I'm concerned that, we're gonna have a consultant, it's gonna cost more. The employees that participate in the 457, and the return is not gonna be there. And so that's my concern. I just want to express
Sure.
that, and this is not a criticism of you, this is a criticism of these plan consultants, right? So I just want to state my concern and hope that you have that in mind when whoever makes a decision on this.
Yeah, they'll have to persuade us that they're able to reduce the load from the plan administrator by more than their fee. I think it's likely. If you look at Vanguard, for example, you're not paying 1% on your portfolio. Brad has a question.
This is 100% elective, is that correct?
Yeah, 457, yeah.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Just from perspective of being finance chair, whomever writes these things down, can we get the labor committee involved? Thanks. Next up, county executive section, fiscal year 2023, county budget process, information only. I've said this multiple times to multiple people, but I just want to say it again on the record. There's a very slim chance I will be here for September 22nd and 29th. So just so you know, I've been telling folks this since February, but I'm sure you all miss me hysterically. Resolution adopting Champaign County financial policies. Do I have a motion? Ms. King, second. Mr. Pasalacqua. I will note that Tammy is here, who is the author of these changes. Does anybody have any questions for Tammy? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution approving a revision to Enterprise Zone Intergovernment Agreement between the City of Urbana and Champaign County. Do I have a motion? Ms. Carter, second. Oh, sorry, Mr. Goss.
Second.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution to supersede resolution number 2021-310 for establishing the salary of the Champaign County Sheriff. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Pasalacqua, second. Beth, Spanish Spear Nut. Discussion. This is, just for the record, is being driven by a change to state law.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment as well. It's a state regulation. We're not giving him a raise.
I mean,
And
we're
it's-
giving him a
well,
pretty big raise, actually.
Yeah, but we didn't vote on a raise, is my point.
Yes,
And
we're in order to take advantage of being reimbursed for 2/3 of the sheriff's salary, we have to pay him a certain dollar amount.
correct. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Next up, resolution establishing salaries of countywide elected officials. You had that distributed. Do I have a motion? Carter, do I have a second? Jen,
Second,
Ms.
Straub.
Straub, second. I'll say, as chair of this section, I don't particularly like having resolutions on the thing. There was a question in the Finance Agenda Committee about the legality of the way the original motion was, and we had to take it through the state's attorney's office to make sure that this was allowable, and that was the delay. So I don't like to operate like that, but sometimes it is what it is. Discussion, Mr. Williams.
I would like to make an amendment to
Okay.
this.
Yes,
to-
what's the amendment?
To strike the sheriff in the chart, since we are taking
Yeah.
care of that in another resolution.
Right.
To change CPI to 1/2 of CPI, and to change the cap in the resolution to 3%.
Okay, so just to make sure the clerk had that, to erase all references to the sheriff, since I almost took it out, but then I figured keep it in case that other resolution didn't go well. So get rid of the sheriff, change it to half CPI, cap it at 3%. Got it? Who are the two folks that moved it? Ms. Carter and Ms. Straub? Will y'all take that? Okay. So now that's what we're discussing. The point of information from the executive.
I just wanted to note there's 2 typos in the resolution as it reads. On the first chart on the bottom of the page, it's future county board resolution. Should be a Y on county.
Oh, yeah.
And on the back page, on the second to last paragraph, the last sentence says in no cash. It should say in no case.
Thanks. I appreciate those.
I'd
editorial
like
comments.
to go ahead and adopt those amendments.
Yeah,
to the-
will you all take the spelling and correct as, okay, friendly amendments? All right. Discussion to the measure now as it stands. Mr. Goss.
Yeah, I can't support this as it stands. I don't think we ought to be setting the salary for the auditor, the coroner, and I believe it's the county or the circuit clerk as they come up in the next election. Not saying that that isn't the number they should be at. I just don't believe that 2 years down the road, we're going to be looking at this and going, okay, here's an opportunity to catch these up because inflation's run away with this. We don't know that if we set these, and in fact, we could be behind the 8 ball. Could change it at that time, but if that's the case, we can change it at that time. There's no reason to vote on it today. I also can't support moving the treasurer up to the county clerk. I think there's a vast amount of responsibility difference, and I realize that that is not palatable for some, but there's a vast amount of difference in those 2 positions, and I don't believe they should be at the same salary, so I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes.
And I guess I just want to note, I understand it's not really conventional for us to vote on salaries for offices that will be future elections. Usually we do it about a year beforehand. But I will also say is that we also, in future boards, will also have the ability to do what we just did on the last resolution and rescind this resolution if in the future things change and they don't like the way it's set up. But yeah, I just want to point that out.
Any other discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Samantha, I didn't see you.
Thank you. We have a problem with employee retention, right? Okay, I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Goss?
Yeah, these are all elected positions, so it really doesn't have to do with employee retention. This is elected positions.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, oh, Tammy.
I'm sorry, I feel like I might be out of line, but the county clerk is not included in here, so you are going to have to address that salary at some future point. Oh, he is? Oh, clerk, I'm sorry. I guess for purposes of administration, being able to go back and review what changes have been done, it would be easiest for us if you would rescind the resolution that was historically passed in the beginning of the new resolution that you're passing.
Listen, that's beyond my smartness. Is that a separate vote?
I can add a paragraph at the beginning that says that.
Okay,
just to
so,
rescind the
all
other one.
right, so, listen. All right, so now we're rescinding it to the amendment. Ms. Carter and Ms. Straub, is that okay with you? It's rescinding what we did back a few months ago. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe I'm being a stickler, but in the last resolution, we superseded instead of rescind. I mean, I don't know, it seems uniform to do it that way.
Actually,
but
the last resolution just established the salaries.
Well, I mean,
No.
it literally
He
says,
means the sheriff resolution. It didn't say rescind, it said supersede.
yeah, I mean, the last one on the agenda, not the last one we passed.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
Fine.
it's supersede.
All
I mean,
right, so is
hoping
everybody
that-
fine with it saying superseding? They have that sentence. This resolution will supersede the resolution number 2021-310.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what the number is.
Actually, 21-2310 is when you established, back in September of 2021, the salaries for the clerk, the executive, the sheriff, and the treasurer. Those four.
Okay.
So the sheriff's resolution will supersede that one.
Right.
This one will supersede or rescind the other one.
Okay.
So.
All right. Is everybody, listen, y'all, it's not going on consent, so we'll have a chance to see the updated version of it. Yeah.
One more thing just to mention that does need to be added here is there was legislation passed that requires the stipends to be disclosed in the resolution, so we need to add that as well. We can do that administratively.
Okay. Yes.
This may be out of line, but with all of these adjustments and corrections, can we just not just take it to the full board next week with all the adjustments and corrections?
I
Just
think
a
it's
thought.
one half dozen or another. It's going to
Okay.
the full board, and it'll have all the changes that were voted on. So and listen, I'm not kidding myself that it's getting on consent. Even if it got on consent, I'd keep it off. So I say we just vote on it. We'll have the edits, and we could have a chance to talk about this again, because I like nothing better than talking about elected official salaries. All right. All those in favor, all right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think the ayes had it. Thanks, Darlene. Thanks for being willing to follow that conversation. Reimburse County Board Member Wayne Williams for travel expenses, page 85. Do I have a motion? Mr. Storr? Second, Ms. Venish-Spearnot. So that's what I got. Discussion. Point of information from the executive.
Just one last thing. I'm being the state's attorney tonight, I guess. So there will be some discussion about the reimbursement rates for per diem depending on what the conference pays for. So I would like to say the request is for reimbursement of 1/2 of eligible expenses, or however we want to. Might not be this exact amount of money.
Okay. Yeah, so we did have a discussion in finance agenda that if you go to a conference and the meal is served, then it would need to be backed out of the per diem. All right, Mr. Storr.
I'd like to amend this so that Mr. Williams gets fully compensated. I think that we have enough money in the budget to do this.
Folks who moved this thing, and I just have to admit, I don't remember who it was at this point. I'm sorry, I'm like not, my game is not all here. Second, is that okay with you? Or would you take that as a friendly motion? All right. All right, so now we're discussing the full thing. So 61108 less any meals that are provided by the actual conference itself. Yes, sir. Mr. McGuire.
Sure. I guess I was for it until that happened. But there's only $2,000 in the fund to do these events. And the other part of it is I wonder what the process is for signing up for one. Secret handshake, what? Thanks.
He asked. That was the process. He asked, so.
Ms. Lex. I didn't even know there was a budget for such things. Does anybody else at this point in the year have any plans to attend anything? And if we don't use the 2,000, do we roll that back in? What happens with that?
If we don't use the 2,000, which we have not done pretty much every year I've been on the board, it just falls back into fund balance. Typically, especially since COVID, I don't think we've sent anybody in a while, even in the non-COVID years. I mean, since I've been on this board, I think maybe we've sent 4 or 5 board members total to conferences. I don't think we've ever maxed out. I don't even think we've ever, maybe one year we came kind of close. It was like a hot year. We had like 2 people go to a conference. It was wild. All right. See no more discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. That motion passes. I don't got any of that stuff. Chair's report, other business. What I've got for consent is A1, 2, 3, B1 and 2, D, 2, and 3, and 4. The end.
All right, for other business, and I think we discussed this earlier, that we were not going to be having the study session on May 24th. Seeing no other business, call this meeting adjourned.